Hello, welcome to Walpole United WFC.
Good afternoon and welcome to the weekly wrap-up with me, Gareth Townsend, joined this week by my first returning guest. Matt, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. It's nice to be back. I always enjoy these shows, having a good chat about everybody and a little bit of tactics thrown in. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into this weekend's games. Obviously, from our results on Sunday, not great, but, we're here to talk about everything and everyone. So, yeah, let's look forward to it and really get into it.
So we'll start as ever by looking at the, usually two teams of the week. At the time of recording, the WSL haven't released theirs yet, so can't discuss that. However, we do have FAWSL's full times team of the week, which, as ever, is the one that includes both WSL players and Championship players. So if we're going to only get stuck with one, this is a good one. In goal, Fran Kitchen from Sheffield United. A back three of Mailing and Sargent from Villa and Taylor Hines from Liverpool. Midfield five, I guess, of Kenza Darley of Everton, Kim Little from Arsenal, Yallop from West Ham, then Kirby and Rutherford from Chelsea and Charlton on the wings, with Watson up front as the star of the week with Sam Kerr. Matt, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much bang on, I'd say. There's possibly a couple more you could add in there too, but I don't think it's not massively wrong. I think they tend to be fairly balanced, these, don't they? It's good when they put out the team of the week as a balanced organisation. I think the thing about that is because it's a collective, you do see more accuracy, whereas when the WSL put one out, they tend to go with a pundit. And not that the pundits are overly biased, but there might be one or two. And if it's like, I don't know, Chamberlain, for example, she might throw in a couple of United players, or if it's Farrah Williams, there might be an extra Arsenal or, something like that. But on the whole, I think the players you see in there tend to be, spot on. I think, like I said, there's maybe a couple you could have, but I'd have to be really picky to say, take that player out and chuck that one in. So on the whole, yeah, I'd probably agree for it. But I'll let you sort of add your thoughts. Maybe there's somebody you might take out.
No, I don't think there is necessarily. I think it's good that it'd be so easy to fill that side with Arsenal players, Chelsea players after this weekend. But I think it's great that, instead of going with something really obvious and having either, Beth Mead or Miedemar in there, we've got players from Championship like Ella Rutherford and Watson up front as well. So I think it's really great to give those Championship players, even though there's only three of them there, Hines, Rutherford, Watson, giving those a kind of opportunity to be selected and given the credit that they deserve, and Kitching as well, in goal. I think it's a really good team of the week. And I think if you look at the WSL from this weekend, there not really any standout goalkeeping performances. It's kind of seemed a relatively one-sided weekend, on average from top to bottom. So we'll jump into it then. We'll go in kind of order of the games as they kicked off. So the weekend started on Saturday at Walton Hall Park as Everton beat Birmingham City 3-1. We were there. I think for a long time it was level, at least on the score sheet. It wasn't until the 73rd minute when Hannah Bennison put Everton back in front that they then kicked on. But I think Everton were pretty dominant, really. I don't think 1-1 would have been an absolute robbery from Brum. Everton just seemed in control. I think Kenza Darley making it into Team of the Week is nothing more than she deserves. Everything positive they were doing was going through her. I think in the first half they really struggled to finish the move off. There wasn't really anybody there that could finish, really. Claire Emsley got player of the match, But I just think that they would get the ball to Darley. She would kind of do something positive, move the ball forward, look to get it out wide to either Duggan or Emsley, and then there wasn't anybody in the box then to finish it off. And I think that's when they brought Bennison on, they then had somebody that was capable then of scoring the goals, and that proved to be the case. And they went on to win pretty comfortably 3-1 in the end. Get their season underway. Looked a lot more like I think we expected them to. Still think the top three is going to be out of the question for them. We'll talk about City later, but I imagine that they'll probably scrape in there once they get their players back. But yeah, I think Everton up and running, and see how they kick on next week now. What did you think?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think, like I say, I'd agree with a dominant performance. And I think what was surprising is, you look at the lineup, and for me, I can't work out why Bennison didn't start. She was a great attacking threat when she came on. Govan had apparently been injured, so that's fair enough. But you still had Sorensen, so there was players that could have started. I look at obviously young forward Grace Clinton. You don't want to obviously go in too hard on her, but maybe was that an option that could have been changed possibly? But I think overall, like you said, everything pretty much went through Kenza Darley, and then they just struggled in the first half to find that clinical edge. I think they'd probably be disappointed with that. But I think second half, Birmingham came out, probably up their game for, their sort of standards. They scored a good goal as well. But Everton, yeah, I think they always looked, I would say, in control. It was just like you said, missing that clinicalness. I think once Bennison came on the pitch, we saw a different outcome, didn't we? I think for me, I think had she started, we'd have been talking a different game and probably a different player of the match, because I liked what I saw from her when she came on. But it's one of them. They've got the win now. They've got sort of the pressure off a little bit now. They've got that first 3 points. So it's just about kicking on now. But I think, looking at that squad, obviously there's a big turnover of players, wasn't there? I think there was 8 or 9 came in over summer. So obviously it's going to take time to gel. But yeah, I suppose, like I say, they've got the win, and 3-1 probably just about deserve that. I mean, the first goal couldn't be helped with the deflection, but after that, they had more than enough chances to, put that game to bed. So I'm sure Willikirk will be pleased with his 3 points. Performance-wise, needs to be better, but like I say, it's a work in progress, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think if you look at the games they played this season that they've lost, they've lost against Man City and they've lost against Chelsea. So, their two sides, City at the start, first game of the season, they were kind of amazing at Goodison. I don't think they pitched Everton any favours there, which we mentioned at the time. But yeah, it's their first kind of time where they've played somebody that's not one of the usual top three, and they've come out on top. So I think they'll be pretty happy with that. So next game of the weekend was at Lee. United 1, Chelsea 6. Now, won't dwell too much on this. For all of the match reaction, well over an hour of it, go and check out last night's show to get kind of the thoughts of John, Nat, Matt, and Stu Barker as well there. I'll just kind of say, for me, obviously disappointing. Thought, I've said it time and time again, that when you concede so early on, that's any game plan out the window, and any preparation you've done in the week ahead in the dressing room, it's gone. Individual errors cost us in the end, and I think we need to learn from that and go again next week. No point dwelling on it too much. What's done is done. Chelsea are a better side than we are. It's just disappointing to lose in the manner that we did. I think if we'd battled and fought and lost 2-1 and it had been a pretty close game, we'd have been disappointed, but sort of taken it on the chin. So I think the manner of the defeat was sort of more difficult to take than the loss itself. But yeah, other than that, there's not a great deal that to say. Hope Leslie's fit soon, so we've got a centre forward, because it looks like Martha Thomas is going to be out for a few weeks, if not longer. And then, hopefully we can look to kick on. We've got a good game next weekend to do that, to rebound from. So it's time to rebuild and move on. And then Durham in the Conti Cup is an opportunity to give some minutes to people that want to impress. So is there anything that you want to add quickly? I know you kind of mentioned it a lot last night.
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I didn't mention on last night's show with John was the fact that we'll probably, or we should I say, learn quite a bit from this. You know, anyone that listens to Mark's press conference, he was going into quite a bit of detail on different things, and he was saying, you know, we thought we're at this level and we've got this and we've got that. So I think, like I say, you know, I'm not going to go into it too much because you can check out last night's show, but just to add, I think that hopefully will be a lot of learning from it, both from him and players. And, you know, fingers crossed we can move forward and correct that. And, you know, the next big game is Man City. It's a derby. Nobody wants to lose. So we need to see a better performance and we need to see a reaction now.
Yeah, agreed. I think the best time to be playing City is next week, is, you know, in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, hopefully, you know, they've not got all their players back by then. Because that'd be a completely different game. But we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. Then, obviously, kicking off in the afternoon, there's a couple of 1-0s. We'll start with Brighton Hove Albion 0, Aston Villa 1. Another win for Carla Ward's Aston Villa, and they, you know, keep going, taking that momentum and winning games and grinding out results that, you know, before this game, Brighton had 100% record, top of the league, and they go home to Aston Villa and come away with nothing. I think the game actually was pretty even. You know, Babajide had chances. I think everything just seemed to be hit straight at Anna Hampton. She didn't really have any real challenging saves to make. I think she made quite a few in the game, but they were all relatively simple, straight at her. Nothing kind of in the corners or kind of no high balls into the box to put pressure on her. It was just seemed relatively routine. You know, a lot of chances from Babajide, from Carter, from Kagman, but nothing really to test Hampton. I thought the game was pretty even, and, you know, it was just one opportunity that Villa had that they took and come away with the win. And Carla Ward looking now really impressive in that Aston Villa seat. Struggled last season, brought in a lot of good players over the summer. Did well with Birmingham, who we've seen this season are now struggling without her, without a lot of players from last year as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what she can achieve. Obviously, you know, a few people, quite a presence on Twitter, wanted her to get the United job. I thought potentially too soon for her, and that the Villa job was a really good opportunity for her to sort of hone her skill set and sharpen her teeth and cut them. So she's doing well. I don't think anyone can deny that. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I'd say similar. I'd say pretty even. You know, like if you look at it, and you know, I saw the highlights and I looked at the stats afterwards, and they're pretty much identical. You know, similar amount of shots on target, possession as well, things like that. But you know, I spoke about Villa in summer. I think both on here and also on Twitter and other podcasts, and I had said, you know, if I was a Villa fan, I'd be very pleased with who came in. Not only the manager, but in terms of her signings, you know, they brought in the experience of Remy Allen, which I said, you know, was massive. You know, they managed to get an Alicia Lehman, Chantel Boy-Halorka. They've strengthened in defence as well, and, you know, made some good signings there, both at centre half and full back as well. So it's good because I think, you know, the difference from last season, you know, completely different team, different manager, different style of play. They look, you know, miles better just overall as an outfit in general. And obviously they've still kept, you know, some of last year's team, and rightly so. You know, they didn't need a huge complete rebuild, but I think, yeah, they seem to have that resilience, don't they, Villa? I think, you know, I saw the Leicester game obviously down there, and they weren't great first half, and then they picked themselves up second half, and they had a good go, and they're just one of those like plucky, tricky sides. They reminded me a bit of the old Red.
So we'll just give Matt a moment to sort his wonderful Manchester internet. Oh, here he is.
You know, the very
Okay, so we'll move on to the next game, and then when Matt manages to sort his internet out, he can join us back again. But for now, we can look at that delightful freeze of him. So the next game was Spurs 1, Reading 0 at the Hive. It took until the 85th minute for Jessica Naz to find the breakthrough for Spurs, but Matt's back.
Sorry, I'm back.
There we go. So what were you saying then about Villa reminding you of the old, and that's where you cut out?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying they reminded me of the old Reading team, very sort of resilient, very well organised, very well set up. And I think, they are where they are deservedly. They've battled away, they've dug in, they've got the win, or wins, should I say. And yeah, obviously new signing yesterday helped them with that. She obviously got the goal and, they've got that competition for places. And Carla Ward's really sort of drilled into them now, that resilience and that sort of mental toughness, I suppose, as well. And, to go to Brighton, like you said, who were flying as well, and to get the result, fair play, very good. And it'll be interesting to see how they kick on. I've read a lot of people saying, 5th, 6th, and I think maybe, possibly, but I still expect them, I'd say 7th, maybe for them. I don't know if the Villa fans would be happy with that because it's most of them the same 5th and 6th, but listen, there's nothing wrong with ambition. So I think for me, it's just a case of see what happens, and if they can keep it going, then fair play.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the more you kind of try and stick a number on it, the more pressure that there becomes. I think just keep going and keep playing the game that you're playing and just become really difficult to beat. I think, unless you're Arsenal, Chelsea, City, usually, their sides where you expect every game they go into, there's a chance they can win. The rest of the league need to kind of have this mentality of, okay, we're going to go in and we're not going to lose. And if we're not going to lose, then there's a chance we're going to win. And I feel like that's what Villa have got at the moment. You wouldn't necessarily look at every single game and back them to win it, but I think at the moment, next week's going to be a massive challenge for them, at home to Arsenal, and we'll really get a good idea of how good they are there because we'll talk about Arsenal later. But for me, I think they're now title favourites if they stay fit. So if they can go there and they can sort of push Arsenal hard and make Arsenal really, really work for it, then yeah, I don't see why they can't become 6th. But just be tough to beat. That's going to be the most important thing. So I just said, whilst your internet cut out, that Spurs hosted Reading at the Hive, and it took until the 85th minute for Jessica Naz to break through and get them the goal in the 1-0 win. But it did not seem like a 1-0 game from what I saw. It seemed like Spurs looked pretty dangerous, attack after attack after attack. And they could have scored 5, 6, 7 goals. I think... if you look at some of the players in that game, there could have been hat tricks, and yeah, I think Spurs, they'll be pleased to have come away with the win. But there's a number of players that probably could have come away with goals. I think I remember a good chance early on from Neville that probably should have scored. I think Kit Graham could possibly have had a hat trick even, as well as a number of other opportunities as well. But Jess Naz pops up, gets the goal 85 minutes in, and that's another 3 points for Spurs, who you think possibly would have been kind of fighting in down the bottom, and they find themselves now as only one of 2 teams on 9 points in the league, and they play Arsenal midweek in the FA Cup, and that, based on form, is going to be one hell of a game.
Yeah, it was interesting because I thought, I wouldn't say surprised. I was more surprised that they didn't finish the chances. They had so many, like you say, so many opportunities to just get the goals and get the game to bed. And I think 1-0 probably doesn't reflect their performance. I think in terms of clinicalness, they won't be too happy with that. You mentioned a few players there that could have, easily put the game to bed. And I think they're another team, we didn't expect them to be where they are. They're going again nicely, New formation to last year. They set up as a 3-4-3. Reading, and I've talked about Reading in the past, they're quite underwhelming this year, struggling for goals. I noticed they gave Natasha Dowie a goal yesterday up top as well. But yeah, I think from a Reading point of view, a little bit worrying where they are, but it's to be expected. You look at what they lost, and we've been through this before, so I'm not going to go into detail. And they're still, down there towards the bottom of the table, haven't yet picked up any points. But yeah, I think Tottenham's interesting because obviously, you look at that lineup and they started with the captain on the bench, and you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. I think they had Rhea Percival in the middle with Obagagu, and that for me was quite telling. Ashley Neville as well, obviously, is a wing back with Clemeron. So they've got this sort of new style of playing, this attacking style, and like you say, Jess Naz got the goal, and they're sort of sailing along well, and also options that came off the bench. Rosella Ryan was one, a couple of others that came on as well. So far so good for Tottenham. I think if there was one thing you do need to be wary of, like you said for the next game, I think it's just being clinical, isn't it? You can have lots of the ball, lots of possession, and have lots of chances, but if you don't put them away, ultimately, it will cost you against the bigger sides. So, yeah, pleasing for Tottenham. They'll be happy with a win, and obviously, they can kick on now with this good start to the season. It'll bring them a lot of confidence.
Yeah, no, agreed. And obviously, that will have been a game that Reading would have gone into and hoping to get something from it. Definitely, they've gone into that thinking, we can win this game. And they come away with nothing. I don't think they even really created any chances. There was kind of one opportunity from a cross towards the end, but nothing really to test the Spurs keeper. And they'll be disappointed with that. As disappointing as Spurs were to not be clinical, Reading just didn't create anything. Never looked like scoring, and it always felt like a game that Spurs were going to win. So yeah, I think they were a side that I thought were going to look a bit better this year. Obviously, knew they'd lost a lot of good players, but didn't quite think that they would look this bad. But they'll be looking to kick on soon as well. So moving on to the Chigwell Construction Stadium, where West Ham hosted Leicester City and won the game 4-0. I've not seen the highlights from this, but Matt, talk to me about three at the back.
It's difficult, isn't it? I think one thing I noticed a couple of comments from Leicester fans yesterday, and I thought I'd offer my thoughts as well. I think they started with it last year. They played a couple of players in the wrong positions. They changed it probably a couple of months in, maybe about November time after the London City Lionesses game. They changed it and they sort of mixed between a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1, which worked well. And I thought it was good. This year, and this is what I'd said yesterday, they stepped up a league and they've kind of gone back to that 3-5-2. And the problem for me is you've got your wide players, and this is by no way a criticism of any individual players, but you've got your wide players that you really need them to be up and down. And I just wonder, with the personnel he's got, are those wide players, all his options, maybe more attacking than defensive? And like I say, that's not a criticism, but I think at times when he's changed it, he's had to put like a defender there. And I think a defender as a wing back that maybe isn't a full back, that's, a centre half, it's difficult, isn't it, to sort of defend it? And I think this is what fans are sort of saying now, why are we persisting with it when it's not worked? And I suppose when you have that philosophy and that's what you've practiced throughout pre-season, you're not going to likely chuck it away after 2, maybe 3 games. You're going to stick with it. So it's going to be interesting whether they carry on with that. But I think, in terms of the game yesterday, obviously I'm not going to include the own goal because that was unfortunate from Ash. That was just a lack of communication. But I just think there was times when they'd probably look at it and think we could have done better defensively. Some people are even going as far as to say players are getting injured because of this system. Now, if that's their thoughts, then that's fine. I don't think for me that they can blame injuries on the system. Who knows? But it's just been interesting reading the comments on that defeat. And I think, from a West Ham perspective, obviously they took the chances, didn't they? They looked solid at the back, you know. They looked good up front as well, and they're just clinical. They took the chances, you know. They stepped up the game, and I was quite surprised. I didn't think it would end as a 4-0 win for West Ham. I was thinking a close game. I was even saying, you know, Leicester will at worst nick a point. So to see that was, kind of, I suppose, a warning to those sides in and around West Ham that actually, you know what, they are here to compete, and, you know, they're not just going to be a little bit of a pushover as everybody thinks. You know, I think I had them like scraping down near the bottom, like second or third bottom. So, you know, to see that, and obviously that result as well, but it's one of them. I listened to what Jonathan had to say after the game, and I listened to what West Ham had to say, and I think, you know, there wasn't much more that West Ham could do in terms of what they wanted from it. And the manager said, you know, we set out this way, we saw these weaknesses and we saw these gaps here, and this is what we wanted, and exploited it. And, you know, that's credit to them. But yeah, Leicester, I think, I don't know, just, you know, they had a couple of chances. They weren't huge chances, but I've said this since day one. Any chances you get, you've got to take, and you've got to be clinical. And I said this right after the Aston Villa game. It is the difference. And it's about two things: getting into those goal-scoring positions, which you didn't do enough of. And I think for me, like I said, I would like to see a change in system from them. I think it would just do the players a world of good to be playing in the correct position. And like I said, it's difficult to say this, obviously, but it needs to be said. And, you know, fans have said the same, why we're persisting with things that don't work. And it's not even like that the personnel that are playing as such are letting them down. I think it's more the system where you kind of think, actually, we might just need to sack it. You know, we said the same about United on last night's show. You're doing something, playing out from the back, and it's not working. You know, and I suppose for me, you know, he thinks he's got the personnel to do that, and fans are thinking, well, do you know what? We've not actually been out footballed and ripped apart as such. It's just been a couple of mistakes where actually, if we'd have changed formation, we might have looked more solid. And I think that's just been the sort of thing, you know, leveled at them, is that two holding or even one holding and a back four is more solid. And just give players a go. But yeah, it's one of them. Whether they persist with that, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. If it was me personally, I would have, you know, I'd be ripping it up for the next game. Tottenham at home, they need to get something out of that now, because it's great. The players are saying, you know, we believe in it and we're just going to sail along. There's no pressure. But at what point does that then become your, not excuse, but you kind of, where do you draw the line? Because if it gets to 5, 6, 7 games and you've still not got points, are you going to be saying the same? Possibly not. So yeah, I think they're going to have a big think about that.
I saw somebody on Twitter say that it seems like what he's trying to do is fit in new signings. So is he, obviously last season, that centre-back pairing of Plumpter and Sam Tierney worked really, really well. So you bring in Abby McManus, and then you can't really drop either of those two that played so well last season. But you've just signed Abby. And so to leave her on the bench is strange. So you kind of go, okay, well, that's fine. We'll play 3 at the back. And then, you know, you think about who you would probably play as your wing backs. And, you know, Esme de Graaf played a good season last season playing at fullback. So, you know, arguably she should be there. But then if you do that, then it means you're not playing either Paige or Hannah Kane, and they're some of your best attacking options. And I think what we saw last season that worked really well was either Shannon or Charlie in behind Tash, but then that means you're not playing Siggy. And I think the 3 at the back, and I don't know if he's trying to specifically shoehorn players in, but it's, you know, I don't think that's a wild comment to make. Like, you know, I said before the start of the season, I don't see necessarily that Siggy starts all the time because of how Tash have been playing. So yeah, I wonder if there is an element of, you know, wanting to try and get your best players into a system and sort of making the system fit the players rather than getting the players to play the system that you want. And I wonder if that's the issue. Like, I'm not a massive fan of 3 at the back at all. I think it leaves so much space for the opposition to exploit. It's exactly why Chelsea lost to Arsenal, just because of space in between the centre halves. I think United could have exploited it at the weekend. The only issue is we conceded after 2 minutes, and then you saw Wrighton, and I can't remember who was on the other flank because they were the other side of the pitch to me. That was it. Neem Charles just dropped right back, and it almost became like a flat back 5 out of possession. And so they could just sit back and be compact. And I think that's the only time where you've got the advantage. You can play quickly on the counter. You can just absorb that pressure and then get forward. I think if you're not doing that, then 3 at the back just leaves an awful lot of space, an awful lot of work, and puts your goalkeeper under a lot of pressure, which we saw at the weekend. But we'll move on to the final game of the weekend, and Arsenal at Meadow Park, despite what some people may think that stadium is called, beat Manchester City 5-0. Now, that is Manchester City's biggest defeat ever as a professional side. Miedemar opened scoring after 10 minutes, Alana Kennedy gifting her the ball, and then scoring, I think, for the second goal. I think it was for Little's goal. I think the keeper should have done better. I think for McCabe's goal, the third goal, they probably could have defended that better. For Little's second, which was the penalty, obviously Greenwood shouldn't have just dived in and conceded that. And then Williamson's goal, she was kind of given a bit of a free header in the box. So all of those goals for me, I think, credit to Arsenal. I'm more than willing to give them the absolute credit that they deserve. Every single one of them goals was avoidable from a Man City perspective. Every single one. And, they'll be disappointed with that. They had some chances. I think Janine Becky had a good opportunity. But if you're just going to make individual errors like that, then you're not going to win the game, especially away from home against an Arsenal squad that can sit Iwabuchi, Tobin Heath, and Nikita Paris on the bench. Them 3 aren't even starting, and they're coming out, and you bring in Tobin Heath on when you're 3-0 up. Madness. I'm not even sure if Paris made it onto the pitch. I know Iwabuchi and Heath came on, but crazy. And I think at the start of the season we kind of thought Arsenal are they're probably going to come third, but I think the new manager coming in, the new attacking players they've brought in, and those young players like Wabben-Moy, Williamson now a year older. They've got competent fullbacks, and Kim Little in central midfield is a class act. They're a really strong squad, and if that core unit of players stays fit all season, they've got Jordan Nobbs to bring back into that fold as well. They can cause a lot of teams a lot of problems, and Chelsea looked pretty good at the weekend, and Arsenal were better. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them next weekend against Aston Villa. Really looking forward to seeing what they do. And obviously we're going to get a chance to look tomorrow night at just what's going wrong for City. Like, is it the setup? Is it purely just that the majority of their starters are injured? They end up starting with Stanway at right back, and Greenwood at centre half with Kennedy. Now, obviously Greenwood has played there before, but she's a left back by trade. Is it the injuries? Is it the system? Is it the lack of pre-season? What's going wrong for them?
I mean, it's interesting because the manager says and blames the injuries, and the fans, from what I've read over the past couple of days, seem to blame the setup and just the lack of clinicalness and the way they play. And I think, it's interesting because obviously we had a lot of injuries last year, and they're in a similar situation. But I look at it and I think it just goes to show that they had all the possession in the world yesterday. They had a lot more possession than Arsenal, and they've come on the end of a absolute hiding, haven't they, really? I think, like you said, I think Arsenal credit to them. One thing I noticed, their former keeper Emma Byrne tweet was, they've come a long way. They've won 7 out of 7. They defend really well. They look good going forward, and they've cut down on the mistakes. And she was sort of saying, cutting down on those mistakes makes a hell of a difference. And absolutely it does. They just look more organised and fluent. And, like you said, they had a bench of Wubben Moy, Jordan Nobbs, Paris. I think, did you mention Iwabuchi as well? Heath obviously came on. You're talking probably five that could easily go from the start. So I think from that, they're able to bring on those quality players. That's the strength in depth now. That's what they've been missing. And they look a threat. I think I went as far to say at the weekend that, after seeing that result Sunday and the way they played, they'll be the ones this year pushing Chelsea all the way. I think before a ball was kicked, a lot of people saying actually they'll do well to get third again. But actually, if those people are being honest now, you've got to put them as title contenders. Listen, I'm not going to fully rule out City, but it doesn't look great. But I think just to go back to City on that, okay, like you said, Greenwood is a fullback by trade, but listen, that back line has still got, obviously barring Stanway, still got an experienced back line of Kennedy, Greenwood, Stokes. Even the midfield, Caroline Way, Vicky Lasada were in there, and then you've got Ellen White, Hemp and Becky that are 3 decent forwards. So, it's not like it's a terrible team. Okay, yes, we can say they got injuries, but this was the criticism after the Champions League game, and other games that they've struggled in where the way they play and the way they set up, and there's a lot of people unhappy with the manager. So I think barring before, all these injuries came along, there was criticisms levelled his way, and okay, they got a great result and they were really good against Everton. But even after that win, there were still people saying they weren't happy with how they played and the tactics and things like that. So it just goes to show, it's difficult for, them and Gareth Taylor to find that balance. But, there was still, for me, Bunny Shaw was on the bench, Jill Scott, you've still got that experience. And like you said, the keeper, obviously there was the mistake by Kennedy. The keeper comes flying out for whatever reason. And it's just things like that at the minute. Daft decisions, obviously barring the handball against Spurs. Even if that hadn't accounted, you're still looking at possibly, a draw, aren't you? So again, at home to Spurs, is that good enough for Man City? Absolutely not. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for them to see how they react sort of in the next couple of games anyway, and especially tomorrow, like you said, in the FA Cup.
So that's the WSL. As we finish this week, Arsenal are top. Spurs sit second on 9 points. There's a massive goal difference gap already. Arsenal on positive 10, Spurs on positive 3. Villa then have that next Champions League spot. Chelsea, Brighton and United all on 6 points. West Ham then on 7. City and Everton on 3. And then Leicester, Reading and Birmingham all on 0. Pretty close on goal difference there as well. -7, -7, -8. Birmingham, who are bottom. So, the season's looking interesting. I think the top 3 will, once everything has had a bit of a shake-up, the top 3 will be probably as we expect it. Be interesting to see where Spurs and Villa end up, but, we'll have to keep coming back week in, week out to see where that is. So we'll move on to the Championship now. A few interesting games this week. Obviously, Durham beating Bristol, bouncing, they took their defeat a couple of weeks ago well. An 89th minute penalty from Beth Heppel gave them their second goal in a 2-0 win. We'll come to Charlton in a minute because I'll ask you to talk about that because I know you've seen those highlights. Liverpool at Prenton Park were able to come out 2-1 winners over Crystal Palace. An early goal from Taylor Hines gave Liverpool the lead before Shiv got Palace back into it, but only for 4 minutes as Hodgson, on her record-breaking weekend, gave Liverpool the win. London City, again, a game that you've seen, but we're just going to go over the scores here. Coventry United went 2-0 up. Rio Hardy getting her first goal in red. And then Jarrett scoring an own goal before putting one in the right net to get London City back into it, and then Bennett getting the equaliser for them. Sheffield United continued their impressive form. Sweetman Kirk scoring pretty early on before a brace from Watson rounded out a 3-0 win. And Sunderland, who I think for me have been the surprise package of the season, regardless of which league we look at, still unbeaten now. Get a 1-1 draw with Lewis. And a late own goal to kind of snatch that draw, but sometimes you need a bit of luck on your side. So they unbeaten. I think Lewis probably were the better side there and probably deserved to take home all 3 points, and will be disappointed not to have done. But all credit to Sunderland, who interestingly playing at the Stadium of Light. So that's fantastic to see. These clubs ground sharing with the men's side as well. Sounded a little bit echoey. Obviously, the Stadium of Light is a big, impressive stadium, but the fans' voice sounded impressive as well. So keeping an eye on Sunderland. So John Hume will be happy, I think, with the way that his side have been playing. He said that that first game of the season we were at with Coventry, he was expecting to go there and get rolled over, but they've shown that they're there to compete. That they are absolutely there. And they're going to compete. Is there anything that you want to say about any of those games I've mentioned before I get to talk about the Charlton-Blackburn game?
Yeah, I think just, like you say, just looking at it there, it's interesting because it's not gone the way we sort of hoped the Championship, or the way that people, not necessarily hope the way people said it would. Like you say, credit to Sunderland because they're sat third at the minute, having won 2, drew 2, and I think they're the only unbeaten side now in that division. If you'd have gone and said that in summer, after 4 or 5 games, Sunderland are not going to have lost the game, people would be giving you funny looks. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. This is a positive thing. And, I want to credit them and say, fantastic. They've got a squad there. And like you said, we spoke to John. We said, listen, you've got a squad there that's willing to fight for each other. They don't absolutely, not absolutely packed with quality like other teams maybe, but they're a team that's collectively together and want to fight for each other. And listen, hard work, because you know the saying, don't you? Hard work beats talent, etc. And that's exactly what they're doing. And, fair play. They're sat up there and, people may have written them off and said, oh, yeah, Sunderland, they're probably favourites for the chop along with Watford. But listen, they're sat flying and they're above Liverpool. So on a fraction of the budget. So it just goes to show. But apart from that, yeah, you've pretty much touched on it well. We'll get into Charlton shortly. Sheffield United, after the first loss of the season against Blackburn, have won 3 on the bounce. Durham are slowly finding form. Obviously, they've lost the game as well. But overall, yeah, it's gets more and more interesting, I think, that league every week. And, there's always a couple of shock results as well. So it's good. I like to see that. It gets boring, doesn't it, when you get the teams with money doing so well and just chucking everything at it. It's nice to see some of the teams that you didn't expect to be up there are up there competing. So, but yeah.
So we'll move on to Charlton then, whose start to the season has been, something of a roller coaster. Turned pro in the summer. First game of the season against Lewis was postponed because of COVID. Then they come back, get a really good home win against Coventry before going away to Durham and taking the defeat just for the international break. But they've come back and they've got a 2-0 win with goals from Ella Rutherford, who seems to be finding a rich vein of form, and Follis as well to kind of seal that 2-0 win. You've seen more of this game than I have, so you were hot on Charlton over the summer. I maybe was kind of sleeping on them a little bit. I'll say that now, but we'll still see. There's still a long way to go. But I'll give you this one. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I think it was important for Charlton to bounce back after that Durham loss, and I think, as we know, after an international break, it's always difficult sometimes, isn't it, to get going, depending on how many of your squad you do lose over that break, just in terms of match preparation and training. But yeah, I think, they never looked in real danger of conceding or losing or dropping points yesterday. Obviously, it helps being at home advantage and things like that. But just everything. Like, I think for me, the midfield's probably won them that game. They looked very good. They had Megan winning there, Kira Skills, Emma Follis as well. So it's looking really good for them. And, like you said, maybe people were unexpecting it or not expecting it is probably the correct word during the summer. But I think if you look at that team, there's a little bit of WSL experience in there. There's a little bit of youth and there's a little bit of players that have played the championship. And it just so happens that they've kind of managed to find this blend of that and get it together fairly quick, But yeah, Ella Rutherford's goal yesterday, I don't know if anybody's seen it. It was a very good goal. However, I'm not convinced she meant that. It was from the wide left, and she did arrow it top corner. It's one of them. Did she mean it? Probably not. Will she say she meant it? Absolutely. And then again, Emma Follis, I think it was right near the end, wrapped up the win and got the 2-0. But, Charlton, good run for the money. Doing well, working hard. I think they've options as well, on the bench, a couple of bits of experienced players. Emma Follis was actually one of the experienced players that came on as well. They've obviously kept a couple of players that were there last year and sort of, like I say, added the new signings to it. And Karen Hills is doing a good job there. I don't think, like you said, many people would have tipped them for near the top, but seeing how well they battle for each other and how the youth complements the experience, it's looking good. And I think Blackburn will probably be disappointed. They didn't offer too much for me. Again, they've sort of had to rebuild and they've got a young side. They've still got some good players, let's not kid ourselves there. But I just look at it and I think, Elite was on the bench. Should she have maybe started? Perhaps, she didn't even make the pitch. So that in itself, maybe they look at that and think, actually, do you know what? Maybe we should have tried to attack a little bit more and nick something from this. But it's one of them, I think at the minute they've won 2 and they've lost 2. So they're sat sort of, I think, 6th or 7th mid-table. So I don't think they're going to be disappointed because they sort of faded towards the end of last year. But I think it's one of them for Blackburn. I don't think games like that against the likes of the Charltons, the Durhams, even the Sheffield Uniteds, who they did actually beat, first game, going to define their season. So I think for them, it's just a case of rebuild and look where they can sort of finish this year, improve on last year. They are looking, I believe, to go pro as well quite soon. Obviously, I don't think this season, but in the next one. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for them. But yeah, yesterday I didn't really, for me, show enough to get something out of that game, and the result spoke for itself.
Yeah, I think all of this says is that Championship. Nat's done a show on the Championship, and it's too close to call. It says I've got it on scrolling across the bottom of the screen, but at the moment I genuinely can't call who's going to come up. I think for the last 3 years we've had a good idea. When we were down there, you can think, we'll come up. The next year, it looked like it was going to be either Villa or Sheffield United. Oh yeah, one of them will come up. And obviously last year, we thought Leicester pretty much from the start with the signings they made that they'd be the ones coming up. But this year, I genuinely don't know. I can't call it. So we'll move on now and wrap up the National League. Some really interesting results, actually. So we'll go through, as always, we'll go through the National League Northern divisions. If you want coverage of the Southern divisions, since 71, cover that excellently. So go and check those out on Twitter. Derby County beat Middlesbrough 4-0. So an impressive win for Derby. Wolves fought a close game against Huddersfield, but won that game 3-2 to stay top of the table. Burnley beat Hull City 3-0. Stoke drew 1-0 with Brighouse Town. West Brom beat Loughborough Lightning 5-0. But the shock of the weekend for me is Nottingham Forest actually winning 1-0 against Fylde, which kind of changed the look of the table. Going into the weekend, Fylde and Wolves were level on points with each other. They had that important game a couple of weeks ago where they drew, actually. It was a bit cagey and neither side able to get the win. But now Wolves are out there on their own and Forest actually up to second with a really impressive plus 11 goal difference. And yeah, it's looking close. The Wolves are on 16 points, Forest and Fylde on 13, and Derby County just behind on 12. So, again, only one side to come up from the whole of the National League. But whoever's going to get that right to go and have that playoff with the Southern champions, it's looking good. And we'll just move on to the Division 1 North, and then I'll bring you in, Matt. Division 1 North, again, some interesting results. Chorley beat Durham Cestria 2-1. Leeds United beat Chester the Street Town 3-1. Liverpool Feds beat Newcastle United 1-0. So that's a great result for Liverpool Feds. Norton and Stockton Ancients lost 2-0 to FC United. So fantastic result for friends of the show, FC. And Stockport County beat Barnsley 3-2. So the table, again, is pretty interesting. Feds and Leeds United joint top on 15 points, but FC move up to third, 12 points. They've got a midweek game against Stockport, and then, according to the FA website, play Leeds United next weekend. So that game becomes massive. I've been meaning to try and get down to a Liverpool Feds game, but there's just so much going on. I've not had chance. But both tiers of the National League looking super competitive, and again, how many times do we need to say that just one side coming up? It's madness.
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know when the FA are actually going to look at this, because we seem to go on about this a lot. But I think it's a shame, because these clubs, and I said this back when I first started watching Blackburn in sort of 14, 15, it gets ridiculous. There were times, obviously not that season, not 14, 15, but there were times when Blackburn were in the third tier. I think they won the league 3 years on the bounce. And it was only in the third year they actually got promotion to the Championship. And that was because I think, was it Sunderland or Yeovil, both got demoted. So they were encouraged to apply. But I think it's just, it does my fruit, because I just think these clubs and these players, they put a lot into it. I'm going to use FC as an example because it's what we know. But FC have upped their training to twice a week, which in sort of, tier 3, let alone tier 4, is quite rare. So to do that and to put a lot into it, for then one team to go up, and listen, it's not just about FC. This is everyone, whether it's Northern Division, whether it's the Third Division, whether it's the Southern Division, tier 3 or tier 4. I don't like it. I think it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse take of the clubs and everything they go through. But yeah, I think onto those results. It's pleasing to see it's so close in both divisions. It just shows, doesn't it? Not one team is sort of running away with it, and there's different results each week. You highlighted Forest turning Fylde over. That could have gone either way, to be fair. And again, I think it's a credit to the job they're doing. I noticed Burnley got another win. I think that's 3 on the bounce now. They're probably not where they'd want to be, but at least, they're picking up a little bit of form now, having, had a bit of a rocky patch. But yeah, I think, Division 1 North and the 4th tier, obviously, like you said, Feds and Leeds are, I wouldn't say running away with it, but they've won 5 games and only lost 1 each. They're doing well. Obviously, FC got that win, which was important yesterday, especially on the road, to keep a clean sheet as well, to propel them up to 3rd. I think, again, is a credit to themselves, and obviously Tom and James for turning that around and, instilling that confidence in players. And like you said, obviously, bearing in mind they've got the midweek game, I think Sunday, and I do believe they tweeted this out today, that they've updated their own fixture list because it wasn't on there. They do actually, like you say, play Leeds. So yeah, that becomes massive, especially away from home as well. Obviously, it's a derby. It's one that could potentially, if FC win it draws them level. Now, obviously, not sure who Feds play, but this could be a chance for Feds to either extend that lead, whether it's by 1 point or 3, who knows, or Feds may get beat. So it's just interesting, isn't it? And it's good to see there's so many, competitive teams in each division. You look at Newcastle United now, sat in 5th. They were flying at one point, got off to a good start, and they've sort of had a bit of a rocky patch. But that's what will happen. It's going to happen to every team, whether it's tier 3 or tier 4. People have started bright, little, hit a rocky patch. Some people have started poorly and they've come into form, and others have dipped. So it's a long way to go, but yeah, I do believe, and like I say, we've banged on about it enough that there should be more than one going up.
So it looks like Feds don't actually have a game. So
so they're playing catch up.
Yeah, well, they have a game midweek. Next weekend they're playing Bradford at home. So there's no game midweek. Obviously Leeds are away to Bradford, so it's a tough couple of games for Bradford City, who won one game all season. But yeah, it's looking really interesting. And definitely we picked a good year to turn our eye down there a little bit more. But we'll wrap things up for today. Thank you for spending your afternoon or part of your afternoon with us. Remember to tune in to tonight's show, which is Matt's WFC show. Matt, do you want to just mention what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, a little bit on fan emotions, obviously. Not necessarily United sort of angle on it, just at a football in general. We can throw in as men's fans and men's games we've watched, and do we get too emotionally involved in football and to results? What part does social media play now of the modern day fan? Do fans focus too much on negatives these days rather than positives? Even people's experiences of going to games as a neutral, there's people that we've all done it, and been and just watch games. How does that sort of, go into the makeup of a fan, reacting to wins and losses, things like that. So yeah, quite a lot to talk about tomorrow. Obviously me, you, Jonathan, and Connor's also making his debut. So yeah, should be a good show. So make sure you tune in at 7 p.m.
And obviously for the rest of the week, Nat show on Wednesday, the main show on Thursday. Anthony's show is back on Friday with the fan forum. And then you and Ben Saturday night with a load of match day content the weekend from about 4 different games, I think. So make sure that you follow us on Instagram. It's down on the screen because that's where all the match day content is going to be. And keep tuning into these shows and like and subscribe on YouTube as that banner handily appears. But for now, have a great afternoon and we'll see you next week.